because there's a lot of history that's been covered up, and most people just accept the history that's been taught to them. Came from a group of Israelites who named themselves the Iba, right, which came from their forefather Eba. So Eba is where you get the word Hebrew from. Right, which came from their forefather Eba. Listen to a Bayesian, a Barbadian. When a Bayesian speaks, you hear Irish. A Trojan prince called Brutus or Brito has been anglicised to Brutus. Right, so the Trojans, it turns out, were Hebrew Israelites. Okay. The line of Judah, right? There's two lines, Phares and the Zara line, right? And on the Zara line, there was somebody called Dada. He was a grandson of Judah. Okay. This Dada and the line of Zara left the rest of the Israelites and went exploring. So they spread out around the world. And so Dada, son of Zara, right, ended up in Troy, and he became the grandfather of Tros, King Tros. Were sons of Jacob, right? The other Saxons, the Anglo-Saxons, were the sons of Esau, right? Anglo means angelic, the angelic sons of Isaac, and not the good angels either. Okay, so you had the England was the kind of or Britain or Britannia. So Britain, and not Ireland, Scotland or Wales. Britain, yeah, was mixed tribes of Trojans and Saxons and Normans or Noirmen. Yeah? But it was a black country. Then you got Anglo-Saxons coming over. I think it was about the year 400-ish, around that time. And I've actually got a map, an old map that has a picture of Jutland, which is Denmark, part of Denmark, I think, Germany and Denmark. And that was called Angleland, right? Home of the English.
Fire Tribe, what's going on? Welcome to a brand new, fresh, beautiful, amazing, wonderful, spectacular episode of Rising from the Ashes. Just another one for the books, another one for the etherical library, the Akashic, the goodness, yes, I see. Yeah, so here we are. Welcome. Unfortunately, I was unable to make it to today's episode, but Dan does such a fantastic job speaking with Allegedly Dave, who has a lot of information about an ancient Ireland, an alternative ancient Ireland, that is. So, buckle in, strap up, get ready. It's going down. You guys are more than sure to love it. But before we do that, friends, and before we get into an RFTA news segment with our good bud, Adam Stokes, here with us again to enlighten us on some updates and goodness. You know how we do it. Going deep, going hard, and loving life. Oh yeah. And we hope that you are loving life as well. This last full moon was a pretty good one over here in my area. I hope that you guys had a pleasurable moon experience. A little house cleaning before we get into the RFTA news segment, and then the amazing interview with Allegedly Dave. Join us on the Telegram group chat, my friends. Telegram is an amazing platform, social media platform, that we get to communicate and create a community of truth-seeking, wonderful humans, so we can come together and have people during the times of dismay in society when you don't know what's going on. We are there for you at the Telegram group chat. I will be there. Indy will be there. Dan will be there. Everyone will be there with open, beautiful, wonderful arms. So, here we are yet again. If you would like to support the show, my friends, the best two ways to do it are to join the Patreon. That is the best way, in my opinion, because you get awesome, amazing content, and you get to dive a bit deeper into the esoteric fringes of understanding. And the more that we open our minds and learn, the more wonderful everything is with that. And through that, you get to get more content for yourselves. You get to help us pay the little podcast bills that it takes to run the show. You know, over here in the studio, we got leaks in the ceiling, leaks in the plumbing, leaks in the walls, leaks in the halls, baby. We're flooding. Just kidding. We're not actually flooding. Sorry if you were actually experiencing that, or if you have any flood trauma. That was not the intended purpose with that. But yes, if you would like to support the show, Dan and I would be much appreciated. And it's so easy, it's just $3 a month. You know, it's just a little cup of coffee, something along those lines. So yes, please do that. If you want to get something more physical, if you want to get some sort of fabric, cloth to wear over your body with a sweet logo or sweet phrase like Sup Brahe in the face of Tycho Brahe, my favorite antiquated astronomer, then you can do that over at the RFTA merch shop. When you buy a t-shirt, you support the show, and you get something. You know, we're buying stuff all the time, every day. All these things are happening. So, you know, if you're feeling like it today, if today's your day of doing that, that's a great way to do it. Anyways, I'm digressing from that, my friends. The links will be in the show notes. If you want to click them and give a little love this way, we are here to receive it. And there's so much love that I'm sending to you right now, because love is what makes the world go round. It is the beating of the eternal drum of the earth. Yes. Resonate the goodness. Resonate the goodness. My friends, please email us with any questions or concerns that you have. If you even just want to chat and you don't want to do it on Telegram, or you don't want to private message me on Telegram or Dan on Telegram, you can email us. It's a great way to chat. We've had some really great emails. Thank you so much for listening and giving your feedback on the shows and your theories on different predictions due to sweet gematria and other things. You know who you are. All right, lovely, amazing humans. Contact us. Be a part of the community. That's really it. Enjoy the music. Enjoy the conversation. And keep this day fueled with goodness. love and compassion for your brothers and humans and sisters and mothers and whoever it is around you that needs a little extra love. Give them an extra squeeze for me. And without further ado, we're getting into some RFTA news.
No idea what the strata terrain is.
What's up, Fire Tribe? Welcome to Rising from the Ashes. Roman is on location in Hawaii, where he just ventured out to for a time. So he's out. He doesn't have a studio set up. He's out in the wilderness. So his audio is going to be a little choppy. So he's going to be punching in and punching out. But we're here today with the wonderful and great Adam Stokes, the giant guy, everybody's favorite giant guy. How's it going, Adam?
I'm doing good. So, been a long week. It seems like this week has gone on forever. So, finally Friday tomorrow after like 3 months of this week. So, I'm very glad for the week to be over. But other than that, doing okay.
Oh, it's been a short week for me, and I've been enjoying it. Except I woke up in pain on Monday because my knee hurt, and then it's been hurting Tuesday, Wednesday, and today it finally felt better. So I started to be able to walk a little bit better today and climb into the truck and whatnot. But it's been pretty bad before that. But it's been clearing up, so I'm doing good. But enough about
Glad you're feeling better.
Let's get into this. What do you got for us today, Adam?
So I know you guys have probably heard of the Shroud of Turin. It's a shroud that claims to have been put over the body of Jesus, right. And to basically have his like essence and stuff like that. And it's located in Turin, Italy, and people go there. Thousands, millions of pilgrims go there each year and venerate the shroud. What you may not know is that there is another freaking shroud attributed to Jesus in England. And so there's a British Orthodox church, and they claim to have possession of this relic that was brought by Joseph of Arimathea to Glastonbury, England, and it's a whole nother shroud that claims to contain the essence of Christ in it. And there's a whole lot of stories and stuff about it having healing properties and stuff like that. But the shroud's still there. So it's some type of British Orthodox church, and they claim to have possession of it.
What's the English one called?
I don't know. It just says it's just they. When I looked on different pages about it, just said the Shroud of Christ.
What is the
so
shroud?
The Shroud of Christ, but they're all about Christ.
And what is the physical qualities of it? Like, what does it actually look like, and what kind of fabric is it made of?
It just looks like a wool type of blanket, basically. When I saw it, not in person, but online, but just a straight up wool blanket. It kind of has some Jewish features because on the side of it, it has. I don't know if you guys have ever seen a Jewish prayer shawl. It looks a little bit like that. Fringes, yes, exactly.
It's got the fringes.
Yeah.
I hear the Hebrew Israelites talking about the fringes all the time.
Yeah, they always are talking about the fringes, wear those fringes and everything. So, so that kind of attests to like the Jewishness of it. So it's very interesting. It kind of goes back to these traditions that the ancient Israelites scattered all throughout Europe, even to England.
Interestingly, I was just talking about the shroud today with some people on my work route, and I read this book a while back called the Hiram Key or Hiram Key, and
I've heard of that book. Yeah,
in that book, they suggest that it wasn't actually Jesus that was wrapped in the shroud, but Jacques de Molay, which is he was the head of the Templars. And
now here we go.
They suggest, or they kind of hypothesize that he was crucified like Jesus, put on the stake and crucified. And then after that, he was burned to death. And then after that, he was wrapped in the shroud. And that's how the imprint
Got on there.
gets
Yeah,
put
I've heard that
into the
too.
shroud. Oh, you have?
Yeah, yeah. I don't know about the Shroud of Turin. You know, I love ancient relics. You know, we've talked on the show about some artifacts I believe to be genuine and some others to be fake. There's a TV show, one of my favorite shows, The Borgias, and it has Kathleen de Schwarza or de Feroza or something. Anyway, she's the enemy of the Borgias, and it has her creating the Shroud of Turin to kind of create this fake miracle, and she has like this fake blood like spraying on the shroud, and people can't see it, and they think it's like a miracle. So that show posited that the Shroud of Turin actually came from Catherine de Schwarza. I don't know if I'm pronouncing her name right, but so I don't know about the Shroud of Turin. I really don't. I've heard a lot of good arguments in favor of its authenticity, but I've also heard, like you pointed out, that it could just be a Templar Knight, and that's the reason why this imprint is in it. So I'm not sure about this. The Shroud of Christ in Glastonbury, not a lot of people seem to know it, and there hasn't been a lot of research done on it. So I'd be curious how that stands in relation to the Shroud of Turin.
Yeah, I'm looking it up right here. The Shroud of, we're just gonna call it the Shroud of Christ or the Shroud of Glastonbury. It says it's a PDF. Dang it. I hate the PDF ones. It's an academia.
I'm curious if there's any like lore about hair being used in the shroud, like woven within like certain textiles. There's like sacred hair, you know, with like different spiritual qualities.
I'm not sure. Yeah, I wasn't able to find too much information about this. But I know, in a lot of medieval relics, the hair of somebody has healing properties. So that skeleton I told you guys about last week with Lazarus, some of that, like his skull still has like some hair and stuff on it, and that was supposed to have like healing properties. If like you put it in a container or something, it was supposed to have healing properties.
Now that I can dig, and I definitely kind of feel that when I'm around like special hair, woolen textiles, you know, like there's a different energy that you get with it. It's really comfortable, and it's like has this like enclosing type of energy on it as opposed to cotton textiles. It's just different. But I've never had anything woven with with human hair before, so that would be quite an experience. But I'm sure it's special and far between.
Yeah, a lot of these medieval relics, you know, the hair of the saint or whatever is really, really special. In fact, to give a personal anecdote, there's a convent near me, Saint Catherine Drexel. It's there's a shrine dedicated to her. It's the convent that she founded, and they'll give you, if you go there, at the visitor center, they'll give you a piece of cloth that was basically had her essence in it. I actually used to carry. Let me see. Might be my Book of Mormon actually, which would be kind of weird. But there used to be a cloth that I had, a piece of cloth that they said to carry around with you, you know, for kind of like good fortune and for blessings and stuff like that.
Is that one in Glastonbury called the Veil of Veronica?
Is that what you found? I just got, it said the Shroud of Christ.
Okay.
Who is Veronica?
Glastonbury has a couple of relics though that are all related to kind of Joseph of Arimathea and the people who were with Jesus when he died, including Veronica.
I've never heard of this Veronica character.
Me neither.
That is super interesting.
She's in. controversial movie, Mel Gibson's Passion of the Christ. Veronica's one of the ladies at the Stations of the Cross in Roman Catholicism, and she wipes the blood from Jesus, and she apparently the blood has healing powers, going back to what Roman was saying. And there's a lot of cool things that happen with the shroud that she wipes. And in the movie The Passion of the Christ with Mel Gibson, she's in that movie as well, but she's not actually mentioned in the Bible.
Yeah, that's interesting. I looked up the Glastonbury shroud. I couldn't find much. What I did find was this Veil of Veronica thing. Can you maybe describe a little bit what it looks like to see if maybe I'm looking at the same thing?
Does it have fringes and is it kind of Jewish Hebrew at the end?
No,
not really Hebrew, but like the stripes at the end. No,
this one looks more like a superimposed
different
picture onto a piece of cloth. His eyes are open.
Yeah.
It says it's Sudarium Christi.
There wasn't like an imprint. There wasn't an imprint on the shroud of Christ. It's just like it just looks like a typical Jewish prayer shawl.
Oh, okay. All right. Interesting. I would like to get more into this with you, Adam, if we could maybe another time kind of look up some of these details of the Shroud of Turin and kind of compare.
There's a lot with the Shroud of Turin. Like a lot of people are on it. Yeah.
Shroud of Turin is very interesting. There's really good pictures of it on the internet too, if people want to go look. And I think there's some pretty good documentaries on History Channel about the Shroud also.
Yeah, they've done a bunch of stuff on that. Yep.
Yeah, because when they dated the Shroud of Turin, it dated back to the Middle Ages. So that was interesting. But then there's things like, oh, well, it was in a fire and they dated it wrong, and they dated this cloth that was part of that was already burned, so it got a different date. And there's all kinds of controversy about it. But there's also pictures of in antiquity of people holding this like big shroud, like it traveled around the world or something, you know. So there's a lot more to the shroud than meets the eye, huh?
Yeah. Some people say like Leonardo da Vinci, using some early photographic technology, created it.
Yeah, that's interesting too.
Okay.
That's
I've never heard that before. Because do you have any deeper digs on that?
I'm trying to think of the book. There's a whole book about that, and I read it in there. Like Leonardo da Vinci was trying to save Christianity, so he created this and it was the time of the Borgias, and like everybody was pissed off with the Catholic Church, so he created this to kind of save Christianity.
Well, I like the concept of the shroud in general is like this. It's a piece of the quilt of the world, or the fabric of the universe, what have you. And is there any ancient Egyptian lore around any shrouds, any sacred shrouds for the royals in the ancient Egyptian times that you guys know of? That just came to my mind.
I don't know anything of like Egyptian stuff, but definitely the fact, like understanding the world as being something that's woven like a shawl. You get that in Greek mythology a lot with the concept of the fates and the three women who weave basically the lives of everybody.
Yes.
Just kind of really freaking cool. That was one of my favorite things when I used to read Greek mythology as a kid.
Yeah.
That also stems, I was just listening to this wonderful book, one of my favorite books right now. It's called, Morai and Morgan's one of the three fates. Ancient Celts heavily believed in that. This book is called The Mysteries of the Dark Moon. And it is so fascinating. It's kind of like, writes a lot about like the ancient matriarch and things. And just literally like 2 days ago was listening about the three fates, and like I'd heard about it and I'd known about it, but it is very, very interesting to think about that trilogy segment, a matriarchal trilogy that existed before the gods.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting. I was watching a show on Prime Video about the myth of Odysseus, and basically Odysseus, at the end of it, he has this whole falling out with the Greek gods, And he says, you guys are so cruel. You guys are so cruel. Nobody's going to worship you, and you're just going to disappear. But the gods that will remain are the three fates. So the fates existed before the gods, like you said, Roman, and they also exist after the gods.
Oh, what show is this?
It's called Great Greek Myths, The Odyssey. It's on Prime Video. If you have a Prime subscription, you can watch it for free.
What are your thoughts on this? Because they say that when Jesus was crucified, the three Marys visited him: Mary the mother, Mary the Magdalene, and Mary the aunt of Jesus, I guess. And to me, I think that might be a representation of the three fates coming to witness that.
Yeah, I definitely think something's going on there with the three women. And I mean, the gospel writers lived in the Greek, they lived in the Greco-Roman world, so they would have known about the three fates. And I think that there's definitely a connection there, and kind of Mary as, the intercessor, at least in Catholic tradition, what develops in Catholic tradition, as the one who really has all our lives on the thread, interceding for us to her son Jesus, is something that I think there's a direct connection. Yeah.
Oh, interesting. I like the way you wove that. Nice, Adam. That's good. A good connection there. I like that, man. Oh, excellent. Roman, anything else from you, buddy?
I guess we can. I always like to ask you about, if your students are breaking any veils, or what's going on, and what kind of lessons you guys are going over in your Latin goodness. That's cool.
We're still reading Catullus, as raunchy as he is. They have a quiz coming up with the poet Catullus. I actually made them do an interesting exercise, Roman. So they had to pick out 2 or 3 words that they found really interesting about Catullus, and it kind of went really down the rabbit hole because they started it was really kind of exit. So they would pick out, for example, vivere solo, which in Latin means to live alone. And there's a whole context within Catullus about it. He's basically bashing this woman for being adulterous. But when you take those words by themselves, there's kind of an existential meaning to it. What does it mean to live alone? And so we had a whole discussion about that. So it was really, really cool conversation.
That's awesome. That is a great thing to have a discussion with your students. Absolutely. That's like the hero's journey. It's an inevitability that there's going to be a time in your life when you separate from your parents, you break up with a partner, you go through a tragic loss, and then you have this developmental stage, this shift in your life when you absolutely have to be okay with being alone. Yeah, exactly. Right.
Yeah.
All right. I want to share this. Sorry. I just put together the deeper meaning of the Disney story Aladdin as a Kundalini awakening. When the beginning of the movie, they're bringing the 2 scarab pieces together to create the one head, the body of the lion in the desert. And that's like the two halves being married, finally coming together. And when they go into the mouth or to get the treasure, there's all this treasure, which is all the treasures in life, but there's the one thing that you need to grab, and it's like the genie and the lamp being the pineal gland, and kind of like being the inner
the spirit,
like intuition type of thing. Yeah. I kind of just had that revelation the other day. What do you guys think about that, or what's your interpretation on that?
I never thought of it like that. I love Aladdin, but I can definitely see that. It's been years since I watched the animated movie, though. I gotta watch it again.
Yeah,
it holds up. Definitely. Really, really good.
All right, excellent. What? How do you spell the name of that person that you said? Is it Catullus or Patullus?
Catullus. Catullus. Catullus.
Okay, cool, interesting. Oh, he has cat in his name too. Oh, is he an abomination? Is he an apocalypse?
He is all over the place, man. He's he's catastrophe. Raunchy, he's mystical. He talks about pets, and the pets are euphemisms for other things, sexual things. So he's all over the place. But his poems can be found online. They're really easy to access, and they're fun reads. They're quick, fun reads. So
awesome. That would be fun for Roman and I to pick out some words from him and bring them back to you and tell you what we got out of them.
Yeah, I would love to know what you guys think of him. And his poems are really short, so read a couple. Yeah, I'd love to hear what you think.
Oh, that'd be awesome, man. That'd be fun. Let's do it. All right. Well, thank you, Adam. I won't keep you too long today. I know I kept you a long time last time, but thank you.
No problem.
We appreciate your time, man, and everything that you do for us around here. We appreciate it. So thank you very much.
Always a pleasure.
And until next time, thank you. Have a good one.
Take care, guys.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to Rising from the Ashes. I'm Daniel Naki Dan. The homie Romy is MIA today, but it's okay. We're going to go do it anyway. I'm here today with Allegedly Dave, a.k.a. Dave Murphy. He talks a bit about flat Earth. He talks about finances, law, all kinds of stuff. He's into all kinds of rabbit holes, I would say. And so I invited him here today because I heard him. Sorry, my computer is loading an episode. I heard him talking about Black history as far as like Ireland and Scotland and the connection to the Stuart line. So I wanted to get deeper into that because there's not too many people out there, Dave, that talk about this, you know?
No, because there's a lot of history that's been covered up, and most people just accept the history that's been taught to them, never even bother questioning it.
Yeah, for sure. So tell us a little bit about how you came to find out more about the Black roots of, Ireland and Scotland, possibly, even America. If you want to get into that too, you can. You're more than welcome. Tell us about how that kind of happened.
Well, to be honest, when I was growing up, I had no knowledge of anything to do with Black history. My mum and dad moved us to an all-white area where we were the only Black family in for like 15 miles. So I had no exposure to Black culture or Black history. I didn't even know about slavery until 1976 when Roots came out, and I was like,
oh,
"What? Wow. What the?" And so after that, I got some inkling, started to realize some of the things that were going on around me that I never really understood. But I never really got into Black history until essentially I read the Old Testament. I've been an atheist for 40 years, so didn't want anything to do with religions and Bibles and whatever. But in my search for the truth, that book kept presenting itself to me, presenting itself to me 3 times. And the third time I thought, well, I'd better take a look at it. So something like 6 years ago, I decided to read it. After somebody told me, and this was the third time it presented itself to me, somebody told me that King James was Black. And I was thinking, well, no, I've been to the National Portrait Gallery. I've seen his portrait. It's a white dude, So I decided to look into it, do a bit of research, and sure enough, I found a couple of engravings of him. And you can't whitewash an engraving, so you look at the engraving, it's clearly a Black guy, and then you find out his roots, his heritage, and also you look at his sons and grandson. His grandson was Charles II, and Charles II was known as the Black Boy because he was so dark. Yeah, and there's pubs all around the country called the Black Boy Inn. Which they've been trying to actually get rid of, whitewash, change. They changed the reason why it was called the Black Boy Inn by putting a picture of a chimney sweep. I said, oh yeah, it's Black Boy because the kid went up a chimney and got dark. No. and also they're changing the names of roads. There's a road called the Black Boy Lane in London, named after King Charles. But now they've, the cultural change agents have gone in and said, no, we've got to change that name because it's racist and offensive, But effectively, it's changed the history. It's taken away the history. Anyway, sorry, I'm digressing.
No, you're good. I also heard about that too, and I looked at coins. Some of the coins are very interesting that show King James on them, and he does look very much black, and even some other aspects, the hair, nose, and stuff like that. Yeah, wasn't his son's name the Black Bonnie Prince Charlie, or is that the other one?
I keep forgetting how that works. That part works.
Yeah, me too.
One of the Charles II who came back across the sea. I can't remember. Yes, I know the story, but I can't keep everything in my head sometimes.
He married some English or a Dutch woman or something like that, right? He was kind of like forced into marrying her to keep the line.
Right. I researched the the whole king thing 5 or 6 years ago, and now I can't keep all the facts in my head now. Sorry.
Oh, it's all good. It's hard to keep. There's so many different things going on and everything, so it's hard to keep it all straight. I have a hard time myself.
I've got like 5 gigabytes of data and notes and stuff on my hard drive. So yeah.
So yeah, tell us a little bit more about kind of like the Black history then of England and Ireland, Scotland. What other kind of aspects is there to kind of give more proof that there was Black people in the Isles before we believe that there were, before maybe slavery kind of went to those places and it got dispersed? Like there was actually, there's a lot of Irish legends about the Fomorians and stuff like that, which you can attribute to African culture.
Well, first of all, I can go back a bit to Europe, the whole of Europe.
Yeah.
Right. You can find an essay by Benjamin Franklin, right, from 1755. Okay, I think it's an essay on the increase. I can't remember the name of it, but it's a famous essay, 1755, and in it he says that he basically describes the populations of Europe. He says that the Italians were black, the French were black, the Germans are black. Okay, he says the Swedes are black, the Russians are black. He said the only white people in the world. No, this is 1755. The only white people in the world were in Saxony in Germany, in England, and the newcomers in America in 1755.
Wow.
Right? So you can go and find it yourself. And I wish the name I could remember the name of it. If it pops back into my head, I'll let you know. But I'll let you know afterwards. When I get to my notes.
Yeah.
But yes, that tells you what the populations of Europe was like. Now. I've got the story of the founding of Great Britain. Okay, and again, it's there. It was right there. Nobody looks at it. It was a Trojan prince, right, called Brutus or Brito. Right? Yeah. It's been anglicized to Brutus. Right, so the Trojans, it turns out, were Hebrew Israelites. Okay. And I found that out because of the line of Judah, right? There's 2 lines, Phares and the Zara line, right? And on the Zara line, excuse me a second. Excuse me, Mum. I want to call. Yeah, sorry. Mum right behind me. Yeah, so on the Zara line, there was somebody called, now it's all out of my head now. Somebody called Dada. He was a grandson of Judah. Okay. This Dada and the line of Zara left the rest of the Israelites and went exploring. So they spread out around the world. And so Dada, son of Zara, right, ended up in Troy, and he became the grandfather of Tros, King Tros, who founded Troy. So the Trojans were black Israelites, essentially. So after the fall of Troy, Brito or Brutus left Troy, apparently had 300 ships, sailed to a mythical land in the west. So he had a vision or something of a mythical land in the west. So he sailed across the Mediterranean, took a bit of a detour, and went up a river and found himself in France, and basically fought his way through France. And then decided, hang on, we're in the middle of France. We're surrounded by enemies on all sides. So let's go back. But there's still a place that bears his name, Brittany. But so he sailed back and then carried on west, where he landed on an island in a place called Totnes, which is on the south coast of England. And right today, you can go to a place Totnes, and in the street, a place called 4th Street in Totnes, is a stone, and it's called the Brutus Stone. And it's apparently the first stone that Brito set foot on when he landed in Totnes. Right, so he arrived here. He found this country overrun by red-haired giants, white-skinned, red-haired giants. Okay, 18 foot tall, apparently. And Brutus cleared the country of these giants and left one alive called Gog Magog. Yeah, because one of his men wanted to fight him. And so there was this epic battle on a place called Plymouth Hoe, where this man was fighting this giant. And this man, basically, his name was Quirinius, managed to throw the giant over the cliff, and he died on the rocks. And that place got called Lam Go Mago, which means Giant's Leap. And there was one of those chalk drawings in the hillside of two giants fighting for years and years after. Right. So there were these white red-haired giants who ran this land. And I think the king of those giants was called Albion, and that's why England was called Albion at the first. But then Brito took over. He founded a place that later became London. It was actually, its first name was Troyanova, which means New Troy. Okay, and so. So England essentially was a black country from Brutus's men. The Irish were already here. Apparently, they were met by a contingent of Irish. The Irish were black people as well. The Irish came from a group of Israelites who named themselves the Iba, right, which came from their forefather Eba. So Eber is where you get the word Hebrew from. Yeah. So Iberia. They called themselves the Iba or Heber. Exactly.
Yes.
So they would name a place after themselves when they populated a place. They name it after themselves. So then they ended up in Spain and Portugal, which they named the Iberian Peninsula. Yes. Okay. Some of them left Iberia and founded a new country, which was known as Hibernia, which is Ireland. Mm-hmm. So the Iba who were ended up in Ireland Well, Iber is a Paleo-Hebrew word. Okay, so the word for man, as in a people, is Aish. So an Iber would be called a man of Iber would be called Iberish. Okay, now when you get Canaanite populations, right? So Canaanites were the Serbs and the Russian type people, right? Mm-hmm. They can't pronounce B's, V's, and W's get mixed together because some populations can't pronounce them. So amongst the Canaanites, the V sound is either a W or a B. Okay, so they say vodka or vodka, yeah, vodka or vodka.
Yeah, I was going to ask if Albion is Avalon.
Well, it could actually be because again, B's, V's, and W's get interchanged. Amongst the Germanics, they can't pronounce V's. So, or W's, sorry. So they would say, "We will kill you," because they can't pronounce the W's. So Iberish became Ivorish or Irish, okay, because of the population. So Ireland was a black country. The Welsh were black as well. They were from the Northern Kingdom. Right? They descend from King Omri, right? And they became the Cimmerians or Cymru. Right? The Cymru means Welsh in Welsh. Okay, so the Welsh were black, the Irish were black, and the Irish actually, some of the Irish went on to another land, and the only name that survives is Hebrides. Okay, so Iberia, Hibernia, Hebrides. Right, so the Irish became the Scots. So the Scots were black people as well. Okay, so literally the whole of the British Isles was essentially black at one point. Right. You also got another infusion of other black people called Saxons. Now, Saxon means Isaac's son. Sons of Isaac.
Yep.
Yeah. So Isaac had two sons. Yeah, he had Esau, the firstborn, and Jacob. The Saxons were sons of Jacob, right? The other Saxons, the Anglo-Saxons, were the sons of Esau, right? Anglo means angelic, the angelic sons of Isaac, and not the good angels either. Okay. So you had the England was the kind of or Britain Britannia. So Britain and not Ireland, Scotland, or Wales. Britain, was mixed tribes of Trojans and Saxons and Normans or Noir men. Yeah. But it was a black country. Then you got Anglo-Saxons coming over. I think it was about the year 400-ish, around that time. And I've actually got a map, an old map that has a picture of Jutland, which is Denmark, part of Denmark, I think, Germany and Denmark. And that was called Angulin, right? Home of the English. So that's where the English came in. Right, so the Anglo-Saxons, right, came in and essentially infiltrated the population,
the islands,
right, and they got to a point where they had enough power around about the 1600s, and they took over England. They put a Germanic William of Orange on the throne of England. The Oliver Cromwell, his first task was to exterminate the Irish. Okay, so he literally started a war against the Irish, and the population of Ireland fell by 40% because he essentially exterminated most of the males. Right? The men he didn't kill, he transported to their new colonies in the Caribbean. Right? So literally, that's how the population of Ireland fell by 40%, because essentially all the males were gone.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So you got Ireland full of women and children. Right? The real Irish couldn't survive because it's essentially no men. So the Germans or English basically took over Ireland and started raping the women. The offspring, the lighter-skinned offspring, got to stay. The darker ones got transported to the Caribbean. You do that for 300 years or so, you end up with a white population in Ireland who are actually descendants of Germans, and the real Irish over in the Caribbean. And, well, my name is Murphy, and I wondered, where the hell did I get that name? I assumed I got that name in slavery.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, we were given that name from a white slave owner. But I found a book in the British Library. Apparently, there's only 2 copies left in this country. And this book is called Whence the Black Irish of Jamaica. And it's a very interesting book because the writer of the book, he spent some time in Africa, and then he went to live in Jamaica. And he looked around and he was saying, well, these Jamaicans are very different from the Africans that I just left. And they've all got pure Irish names. How does that happen? So he thought the same as me. He thought they must have got it in slavery. So he went and looked at the land registry and the records of who the landowners were. He couldn't find a single Irish name in those landowners. So they didn't get their names from slavery. Turns out that because Jamaica was a British or an English colony, well, England was at war with Ireland, so there can't have been any Irish landowners because it was an English colony.
Mm-hmm.
So it turned out when the writer, his name was Williams, Joseph Williams, when he went back to England, he checked out the records of Oliver Cromwell's deportations. He found all of the names. So literally, the Irish were taken, over to the Caribbean with their names intact, right? And that's where they are to this day. The real Irish are in the Caribbean and in the Americas, and the population of Ireland are Germans. They don't like it when I tell them that, though.
Yeah, I was listening to a podcast. I forget the name of the freaking podcast now. The conspiracy guys, Gordy. They had a show and they were talking about some Black history and stuff, and they were talking about the Jamaicans and how their accent, the way they speak, almost has that like Irish kind of accent to it.
Scottish. Well, listen to a Bayesian, a Barbadian. When a Bayesian speaks, you hear Irish.
Yeah.
My dad was Bayesian. Right. When he first came here. Right.
What is Bayesian? What is Bayesian?
From Barbados.
Oh, okay. From Barbados.
Right, so my dad was from Barbados. When he came to England, because he was kind of fair-skinned, the Irish people he met thought he was Irish. They didn't know he wasn't Irish, because his accent was so close to Irish that they didn't know. Wow. And his name was Murphy, so they had no reason not to think he was Irish. Right. Again, if you listen to the Bayesian accent, you will hear pure Irish. And Jamaica, you'll hear Scottish. You'll start to hear Scottish. All right. Look at the Jamaican flag. If you remember the Jamaican flag, it's green and black, and it's a cross with the triangle bits in between. It's a Scottish flag. Just the colours are different. You know, so that's essentially it. There, I think I was speaking to a Jamaican, and I started to notice the Scottish words. Yeah, the way they said certain words was very Scottish. So essentially, that's what happened. And when my parents came over to England, they started seeing signs in the windows of guest houses and things that said "No blacks, no dogs, no Irish." And I wondered why were the Irish lumped in with the black people? Well, it's because there's a memory, whether it's a racial memory or just a kind of handed down type faded memory, that the Irish were black people. And it doesn't matter how white they are. There's that one drop rule. One drop of Negro blood makes you a Negro, right? That the stigma remained. So that the Germans in England, the English, would look down on the Irish because they said, well, no, you've still got some black blood in you. So that's why the Irish were always looked down upon by the English. And apparently, the Irish became or joined the white race in 1940. Yeah, they were considered white. They became white in 1940. And you still have this idea of people called the Black Irish.
Yes.
Now, when you ask somebody, what does it mean, the Black Irish? Oh, they'll say, oh, it's people with dark hair and dark eyes. No. You got French people with dark hair and dark eyes. You got Italians with dark hair and dark eyes. They're not called the Black French or the black Italians. No, the Irish were black people, and this idea of the Black Irish is just a memory of who they were originally.
Yeah, that's fascinating. There's a book. Is it Thomas Mackey, who was the spy for the Queen?
John Mackey.
John Mackey. Yeah. There you go. Yeah.
Yeah. So John Mackey was a spy for William of Mary, and his task was to make an inventory of all the noblemen of the whole British Isles. Right? So he went around and he described everybody in detail. And most of the noblemen he described were black people, including King Charles's children. King Charles had lots of illegitimate children, and they became, earls and lords and whatever. And each one of them is described in this book, and it's he's a tall, dark, black man. Not as dark as their father, King Charles. That was one of them. So that's one of the pieces of evidence that tell you that the nobility of the country were black people. And I went through that book, and every black nobleman that was described as such, that had their surname there as well, I actually just noted down all the surnames. And in one of my slides of one of my talks, I put up a slide with all these surnames. And I said, if your surname is in this list, you probably descended from a black man. And I heard gasps from the audience.
I mean, there is the out of Africa theory and whatnot, which basically says we all came out of Africa at some point. So we would have all had to descend from some type of black ancestor, which is interesting because they say that, and then they show Adam and Eve as being Caucasian, but wouldn't that make them dark also? Yeah,
absolutely. When have you ever found the dust of the earth being pink? No. And we don't all go back to Africa. Yeah. We don't all go back to Africa because that's kind of forgetting the whole flood story.
Mhm.
And the flood did happen, right? Because there's physical evidence that the flood happened, a worldwide flood happened. And Noah's Ark was found back in 1980. It was found. It was originally found in 1960 by a Turkish army captain, and an American archaeological team was sent over, and they just dismissed it as a natural formation. But there's a guy called Ron Wyatt who went back with ground-penetrating radar and metal detectors and all this stuff, and discovered the superstructure of a boat that fit the exact dimensions of Noah's Ark. And
On Mount Ararat,
the only thing
right?
that was wrong with it, sorry?
It was on Mount Ararat.
Sorry? No, it was in the foothills of Mount Ararat.
Oh, okay.
That was the only problem, because
Okay.
the book says that the boat came to rest in the mountain, right? Now, the last clue was that Ararat is volcanic. And so Ron Wyatt went up into the mountain, and what he found was the keel of the ark was still wedged in the mountain. And what must have happened was that Ararat erupted, covered the ark in lava, right, so completely that it couldn't burn, because fire needs oxygen to actually burn. So it covered the ark. It the weight of the ark and the lava snapped it off its keel, and the ark went down the side of the mountain in the lava flow. Now, if you go onto Google Earth today and you find that location, you'll see that the surrounding area is, the ground is fairly light coloured, and you get this dark, almost like large river. And the ark is right smack dab in the middle of this river. This was a lava flow. And you can see where the ark went down in this lava flow. And there was a sharp piece of rock. It's jutting out, and the ark got speared in the side. So when you look at the ark from Google Earth, you'll see that the ark is arc-shaped, but it's dented on one side, and you'll see a rock sticking out of it. So literally, that's the whole story. The ark came down the mountain, got speared, and just got hooked up on this rock. And it's there to this day. And I think when Ron Wyatt actually wanted to excavate, the Turkish government started, kind of dragging its heels and saying, no, we're not going to let you excavate. And then I believe the Most High stepped in, and there was an earthquake at that very spot, which actually excavated the boat for him.
Wow.
How does that happen? Yeah, I think that's the hand of the Most High, that, I want this to be discovered. And right at that moment, just excavated that whole thing. And sure enough, there's all this petrified wood that show that it's the ribs and spars of this boat.
Yeah, there was just a big earthquake in Turkey, like a month ago. And I think they said that they were able to find some more archaeological stuff because of the earthquake. It rattled everything. It didn't destroy Göbekli Tepe at all. It left that intact, but it made some fissures and whatnot, and they found some more stuff. They haven't disclosed necessarily what they have found, but they said, we got some more treasure to find now because there's some openings in the earth. So that's pretty fascinating.
There's been there's a lot of biblical stuff going on right now, and over the last few years, that when it made it into the news, it wasn't framed as biblical. An example was the Gulf War, for instance. Right,
okay.
The Gulf War wasn't about oil; it wasn't about anything else. But the second narrative that was underneath the whole war story was that the army was going into all the museums and looting the museums for biblical artifacts. And during the Gulf War, they found Nimrod's tomb, or Gilgamesh's tomb, the same person. They found his tomb, and they also got the DNA of Nimrod, which is pretty significant. So, as I said, right now we are in biblical times. These are the last days, and the reason I know that is because of the last prophecy. Pretty much the last prophecy of the Old Testament is what would happen to the Israelites when they would go into their final punishment. Okay, the final punishment of the Israelites was 400 years of hard slavery and affliction. Okay, the worst slavery ever seen, ever conceived. Okay. And you can go into Deuteronomy 28, the last half of Deuteronomy 28, and it describes how bad this slavery was going to be. Now, that slavery and affliction started August 21st, 1619. 400 years on from then is 2019, August 21st, 2019. So that was the end of the slavery and affliction.
What happened August 21st, 2019? What happened in 2019?
Well, that was the anniversary. That was the 400 years over with.
Oh, okay.
And straight away, I don't know if you remember that time, all hell broke loose. There were all sorts of incredible weather events. You know, half of America was on fire, the other half was underwater. Yeah, there were locusts appearing in places that never saw locusts before. I think Las Vegas had a massive swarm of locusts come through. Even Siberia had locusts come through. You know, there were rivers turning red all of a sudden out of the blue.
Yeah,
and then a few months later, lockdown. The whole world locked down. Yeah, so release of the slaves. Lockdown.
So that puts the beginning of slavery then at 1619.
Yeah.
Isn't that the same date as the Bible? Isn't the Bible, the King James version? Isn't that 1611? 1611. Okay, got
1611. Yeah.
The 1619, is that when the Jacobites came into Scotland and Ireland?
Well, Jacobites. Jacobites came about because once Charles II was deposed, right? The people who wanted the return of the black bloodline to the throne were called Jacobites. After King James, who was known as Jacobus or Jacobus. Yeah. So they became known as Jacobites. So they were outlaws because they wanted the return of the Stuart line to the throne. So that's it. That's who the Jacobites were, and it came from the name Jacob. They were identified as children of Jacob.
Yeah. So the Stuart line was Hebrew then, in other words, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
They were of the line of King David. The German line that's on the throne today isn't of the line of King David. They married into that line. They weren't of that line. So I believe they married a female Stuart, and that's where their line came in. So I think, if I get it right, again, I haven't looked at it for a while, but I think it was somebody of the Hanoverian line married a daughter of one of the King Jameses. I think it might be James II, and so got into the throne that way, sort of by marriage.
Yeah. Like I was saying, there was that Dutch woman who I think she was brought across the sea to marry King James because they were making him, to be able to stay in power, marry this woman. And then I think he had kids, and then after that happened, they're like, okay, well, fuck you, we don't need you anymore now, you because you've had the kid. So then that kid went on to be the line, But then after that, they got rid of all the rest of the stewards.
This has been a very slow
Nova Scotia, right?
New Scotland.
Yeah.
New Scotland.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. This has been a very, very slow takeover of world power. And it goes back thousands of years. Yeah. It's a very small bloodline of people taking over the world. And right now we are in that world that they control now. And they came back into power at the time we call the Renaissance period, which is about the same time that we're talking about here. Yeah. That was that.
Yeah, they say that only not only, but about 82,000 people came into America as slaves from Africa. Most of them went to Spain and England in the 100,000s. Do you think a lot of the population of the so-called slavery in America came from Scotland and Ireland through like the orphan trains and stuff like that? Do you know about the orphan trains and whatnot?
I do.
Do you think that was part of that or something different?
Not really. Okay. Not really. I'll get to that in a second. Yeah, because that's very interesting as well.
Yeah.
So the slaves, right? They didn't all come from Africa. That's the point. Yeah. Yes, there were a lot of slave ships coming from Africa, but they also came from Europe. Remember what Benjamin Franklin was saying, right? All of Europe was black, apart from a few small pockets of white people. Yeah. So essentially, all these European wars, like the 100 Years' War and the 40 Years' War, and these were ethnic cleansing, right? The black people from Europe were taken either as slaves, prisoners, vagabonds, any excuse, they were shipped out. Right? But they weren't counted as the slaves that came from Africa. They were sometimes called indentured servants, but they were slaves. And so there was those coming from Europe straight to the Americas. There was the people from the British Isles who went via the Caribbean, and sometimes directly to the Americas, South America as well, but mostly via the Caribbean.
Yeah, that's pretty interesting. I watched some. Have you heard of Kuramiu Ahau on YouTube? He does a lot of
no.
Yeah, he does a lot of great videos about American Black history, and he presumes that there was already Black people here in America before even any of that stuff happened. That's why there was Black people that already owned land in America, was because they were already here. And then they when they came over, they said, oh, well, they're actually slaves. And then they, took it over, then took it for themselves. And then kind of like they always do, they always take over the old thing and then proclaim it as their own. So that's another.
I'm not sure that they were Hebrew Israelites. Because there are another people who were sharing the land with the Hebrews, the Canaanites, and most Canaanites were or I say most Canaanites were black, but there were the Canaanites who stayed in the land when Joshua arrived. They were turned white. I think it says so in Deuteronomy. Right, they were given the curse of leprosy, right? But the ones who'd left, land of Canaan, they became the Phoenicians. In one group became the Phoenicians, and the others became the Indians of various places. Yeah, the native Indians of various places, right? So because the Canaanites shared the land, they also shared the language, because Paleo-Hebrew was a language of pictures. So there were people would draw, like for the letter A, a picture of an ox head. Yeah, so triangular faced head with 2 horns and 2 ears outside. The Phoenicians or the Canaanites took that script and they created a more standardized script, which was, okay, instead of a picture of a cow's head, they did like a V for the face and a line across it so that you got 2 horns and 2 ears coming outside. And so they kind of standardized that language. So you've got Paleo-Hebrew and the kind of Canaanite version of Paleo-Hebrew. And that's what they're finding in America. So the Hebrews would use it and the Canaanites. So I'm not sure whether those people are Hebrews or Canaanites. I don't know.
Yeah, that's interesting. In America, there's a lot of stuff about it being Egypt, or presumably the original Egypt before the diaspora, because like in the Grand Canyon, they have found a whole bunch of Egyptian artifacts. So some people say that it happened a long time ago, and some people say, you know, it happened relatively recently after like kind of the downfall of Egyptian society and the beginnings of slavery. So it's or not, actually way before that, 500 AD, so more common era than BC time. So
you know, I was just going to say, in the Old Testament, it talks about Peleg, and Peleg, I think it was father of Eber, or it might be the other way around, but in Peleg's days was the earth divided, right? Not the people, it said the earth was divided in Peleg's days, right? So in the at the Tower of Babel, it says the people were divided out and went their way, but in Peleg's days, the earth was divided. So I don't doubt that there was you know, Egyptian artifacts found in various other places, because, you know, I imagine people were able to roam around on different land masses because they were pretty much the same landmass at one point.
Okay, like a Pangea type of thing going on.
Could be.
Not like complete Pangea, but a little bit of separation from what we think of as Pangea, and then Atlantic being like maybe a big fissure, that because I know the east coast of America does have some connection with Ireland, like the land itself. There's a mountain range that connects to over there, and it's the same type of rock and everything. So it seems like there at one point there could have been some kind of fissure or split between all the lands.
Well, this comes into a different area that is a bit contentious, but part of the my flat Earth research, there was a guy who posted some amazing videos called Iwar Anon, and he did a set of videos called Lost History of Flat Earth. And one of the things that he proposed, which I actually believe must be true, is that if you think of the flat Earth as a lake, okay, a pond, right? So a circular pond. Now, imagine that circular pond is just one small part of a larger lake, okay? So the lake is about 4 times the size of this pond, and that lake is frozen over, totally frozen over. But there's a heat source that's going around a quarter of that area, and it's melting out a small puddle out of that lake. Well, that's our Earth, okay? And the sun is moving around a magnetic source, this point of magnetic or point of magnetism, and that point is moving around the larger lake, dragging the sun with it, okay? And the sun is melting out a different lake as it's going around. Does that make sense?
Okay, yeah.
Right. So So the islands that are poking out of the lake we call continents. And as the sun moves around, there are continents that are going under the ice, getting colder and colder and freezing over, and new continents emerging out of the ice. Okay, so our idea of lands, is a kind of changeable in that model, because over the eons, land just disappears because it literally gets too cold to live and then disappears under the ice, and people move to a new land. And they usually bring the same names over with them, and so on. So that kind of leads on to this idea of the orphan trains you were talking about.
Oh. Okay.
So around the time, or just before this idea of orphan trains, there was this phenomenon of world fairs. Okay. These amazingly built cities, which, the system are trying to tell us that they manufactured this city out of chicken wire and plaster. Yeah, amazing architecture, huge buildings, right? And they said, they manufactured it for this World Fair. They showed off all this technology, and then they destroyed it after 6 months. What really happened, in my view, is that a new continent came out from under the ice, and people moved there and found cities already built. Okay, it's amazing cities already built with all this technology in it, and they just called it a World's Fair. Now, if you go to, I believe, the Chicago's World Fair for 1893, I believe it was, one of these amazing, huge buildings was called the Baby Incubator Building. So people would go in and see rows and rows and rows of incubators with with all these babies in them. Right? Around the same time, we're told that cloning was discovered. Around the same time. Yeah. And when you look into the work of the person, I can't remember that guy's name, who supposedly invented cloning. There's an account of him putting a baby in this darkened box. Right, the first incubator, it was a darkened box. It was kept heated, sort of a lot hotter than I guess would be considered comfortable, and I can't remember something else that he did, but he kept this baby in these conditions, and this baby would grow sort of a year in a day. So they were able to grow children at an accelerated rate. So you had this phenomenon of babies in incubators, and then a few years later, you had this idea of orphans, hundreds of thousands of orphans coming from nowhere, right? And then having orphan trains taking, these orphans from New York to the rest of the country to populate all these cities. Okay, remember what I said about Benjamin Franklin, 1755, very few white people. By the time of these orphan trains, right, all of a sudden there were now millions of white people all over the place, right? And there were never any black orphans on these orphan trains.
Interesting.
Bear in mind also that was America. In England at the same time, all of a sudden, there were all these orphans came out of nowhere. Nobody knows where they came from. And these orphans were then transported to Canada, to Australia, to South Africa, right? At the same time, in Europe, in Russia, all of a sudden they had all these orphans, and nobody knows where all these orphans came from. And these orphans got transported around Russia and Europe. Okay.
I didn't know it was worldwide.
From 1755, it was a worldwide event.
Yeah.
So 1755, very few white people, right? 100 years later, millions of white people. A lot of them coming from orphans.
Interesting. Wow. My mom has done my genealogy, and we can trace it all the way back to King Charlemagne. But King Charlemagne is said to have hundreds of children, so who knows? But so do you think any of the royals and whatnot were black way back then, or some of them were, and then kind of as the Reformation happened, a lot of the darker skin got kicked out and replaced with white people, or how? What do you think happened there?
You have two different types of royalty. Okay. You have royalty that descends from King David, right? The real royal bloodline, and you have another bloodline. Okay. Now this bloodline goes all the way back to before the flood.
Oh, okay.
It started with the fallen angels.
Oh, so we're gonna get into some Nephilim now, huh? Yeah.
Exactly. Exactly. So you got the Nephilim who descended from the fallen angels. Right? Now that bloodline basically took over the earth to such an extent that that Noah was the only one left who didn't have this Nephilim DNA in him. Okay. So that's why the flood had to happen, because the Most High just wiped the earth of that bloodline. But he couldn't get rid of it completely because, as I said, Noah was the only one who didn't have Nephilim DNA in him. Okay. So Noah's wife was corrupted. And I've since found out that Noah's wife was of the line of Cain. Her name was Naamah, of the line of Cain. So Cain's bloodline, which also came from an angel, was in Noah's wife. So Noah's children were corrupted. And a week before the flood, Noah had to find wives for his 3 sons. Right? So the wives of Noah's sons were corrupted. So post-flood, what you see in Genesis post-flood was the Most High cleaning the bloodline. Yeah, he selected out of Noah's 3 sons Shem as the chosen line. Okay, because his bloodline was the cleanest out of the 3. Okay, out of all Shem's children, Arphaxad was chosen. Okay, and then skipped a few generations, and then it was Eber who was chosen. Skipped a few more generations, then it was Abraham who was chosen. And Abraham was told to marry his half-sister. Okay. Now, Sarah, his half-sister, was barren. And so, Sarah gave Abraham her handmaid, who was an Egyptian. And so Abraham's firstborn wasn't chosen because he was of the wrong bloodline. Okay. Only with Sarah, right, his half sister, right, was Isaac was born. So Isaac was chosen because it was about purifying the bloodline away from the fallen angel seed. Okay, so when it came down to Isaac's children, Isaac's twin boys, what happened there was all of the Nephilim DNA was concentrated in Esau. Okay, if you listen to the description of Esau, right, you hear the description of the fallen angels: wicked, cunning, warlike. Now, in Jacob, he had no fallen angel DNA. His bloodline was now considered purified. So all of Jacob's children were now considered pure. Okay, that's the story. The story of the Old Testament is a story about bloodlines, right? The Most High's bloodline, from Adam. So the original blueprint of man, and you got the counterpoint, which was the image of the fallen angels, and they're the 2 bloodlines that have been warring ever since.
So you're saying Noah was black and his wife and other wives of his children were of the Nephilim Caucasian bloodline, and then so they started to breed out the white to keep the pure black. Is that what I'm getting, or am I off?
Well, okay.
Or Hebrew, or however you want.
Okay, so in one of the books that was released by the Vatican in 2019, it's called the Book of Lamech of Cain. I don't know if you've come across it.
No, I haven't.
It's more like the pamphlet of Lamech of Cain, because it's a really, really short book.
Oh, okay.
It talks about Narmer. It says that Narmer was not so wicked as the rest, because actually Narmer came from, going back, Lamech of Cain married Adar and Zillah, who were daughters of Kenan, of the line of Seth. Okay. So Kenan's daughters married Lamech. So their child Narmer, it says she wasn't as wicked, so she wasn't as light as the rest of the people of Cain. Okay. So she'd be considered mixed race or half caste. Okay.
Right. Mulatto.
So nothing much is said about everybody, everyone else before the flood. So I can't really say anything. But all I can say was that Noah was born as albino, and he then changed after he was born. He was born albino, apparently blonde hair, blue eyes, and white skin, because his father Lamech saw him when he was born and was frightened, and he ran to Methuselah, his father, and asked to go and see Enoch for wisdom. And he said to his father, "I've begotten a strange son," and described him as white-skinned and pink, and blonde hair. I think Enoch said, "No, he's not. He's not of the children of the fallen angels. He's been marked to show that he will do something amazing in his days." And that's what the angel told. That's what Enoch told him. So he was born albino, and he changed.
That's interesting. I've seen like documentaries about the albinos in Africa, and how through two black people, basically these white with white hair, white eyes children are born. I've also heard stories about that they would take these albinos and take them up to like Georgia, and I forget what the Caucasus Mountains, and then they'd put the babies over there because they thought that they were something was wrong with them, and that's how the Caucasian population got started, was from black albinos. So I mean, I've heard all kinds of stories and stuff like that, but what do you think about that story?
That's a bit ridiculous, really. The Caucasus Mountains is essentially where the Germanics, that bloodline ended up being pushed after the fall of Rome. Okay. So they were basically exiled to the woods and the mountains. And have you heard the phrase or the name woodwoes?
No.
Or wild men?
Yes.
Right. So the wild men of the forest, that's what they ended up being called, because they ended up growing long red hair all over their bodies, and they'd wear either be nude or wear just fig leaves or leaves around them, and they'd have a crown of leaves around their heads and stuff, and they'd have clubs, wooden clubs, and you'll see them on heraldry. I think if you look at Prince Philip's coat of arms, you will see coat of arms tells stories. tells the story of the bloodline. And on Prince Philip's coat of arms is a white-skinned wild man with a club, looking with hatred at a golden lion with a crown on it. The golden lion is a lion of Judah.
Yeah.
Of the Phares line. Yeah. Okay. You'll see on a lot of other heraldry a red lion. Okay. The red lion is the lion of Judah, but of the Zara line. Why it's red is because Zara and Phares were twins. Okay. And when they were about to be born, one of the twins stuck his hand out. Okay. And the midwife said, oh, this is going to be the firstborn. So they tied a scarlet thread around the wrist. The baby pulled the arm back in, and then the other baby was born. So Phares was born first, and Zara came out with a red thread on his arm. So he was known as the Red Hand. Yeah?
Oh, shit.
So, right. So in Ireland, you'll see, right, in the Ulster flag, in the middle is a red hand, telling you that's the Zara line was there. Okay. So the red lion, right? So it's a red kingly lion, but that's the line of Judah of the Zara line. The golden is Phares.
Are you familiar with Ralph Ellis?
No, no.
We had him on the show one time. But he has this book called Mary Magdalene, Princess of Orange. And it goes into the whole, when we had him on the show, he was talking about the Red Hand and how there's a connection to that to Ireland. It's interesting. Does that connect to the Native Americans or anything in any way? Because there's a lot of like hand petroglyphs of like red. It's like an outline of a hand in red paint. And I've heard stories where they say like that's like a warning not to go in that direction because something's going to happen, or it's like a bad omen to find a red hand on a wall.
Are those petroglyphs? Do those hands have 6 fingers?
No, 5.
Okay. You might want to check, right? Because that would be the warning. Because a lot of the Native Americans apparently came into contact with again, some Nephilim DNA type people who were giants and had 6 fingers. And it said that's why they raise their hand and say like how or whatever they say, right? Yeah. To be able to count the fingers. Yeah. And the idea of blood brothers, where they, cut the hand and mix the blood, right, is because Rh negative blood, which is a trait of these Nephilim, right, the fallen angel DNA, Rh negative blood, when it's mixed with Rh positive blood, it starts to curdle. So they'd be able to look at the blood and see if you are human or Nephilim.
Interesting. Yeah. Can we get back to Esau and Jacob? You said that Esau pretty much inherited all the Nephilim blood. That's why he was hairy and red, right? He had hairy. He was hairy and had red hair. And then Jacob was the more pure one, or didn't have all that Nephilim blood, I guess you could say. So I have a bone to pick with that. Because it seems as though Jacob tricks his father into getting the blessing to become the progenitor, but it was originally supposed to be Esau's. So I'm just curious how that works,
Right. Well,
it almost seems like a trickster
Esau
type thing, like because he went and tricked, his father. He dressed himself with like hairy, made himself look hairy because his father was blind, and then he tricked his own father into giving him the progeny. Yeah.
Yeah, the blessing. Yeah. So first of all, the Most High told Rebecca that the elder will serve the younger. Yeah,
Yes.
the Most High already told Rebecca that's what was going to happen. That Jacob would get the blessing and not Esau. Right. Also, just before this happened, Esau sold his birthright to Jacob. Right, supposedly for a pot of stew or something,
Yeah.
right? So he sold his birthright. So when Isaac said, "I'm about to die," let me give you your blessing, Esau should have said, "Sorry, Dad, I've just sold my birthright to Jacob," but he didn't. He just went ahead and said, "All right, I'm going to get the birthright." All right. So he basically defrauded. He was going to defraud Jacob anyway because he'd sold his birthright. So really, the trickery was basically just redressing a wrong.
Okay, because I've heard that like Jacob sent Esau out to go hunting, and he knew
Isaac did.
Isaac sent Esau out to go hunting.
Yes, he said,
okay.
"Mate, hunt me some deer so I can have the meal that I like, and I'll give you my blessing."
Okay, yeah, because this one was about seemingly the idea of taking the coat from the other brother. It kind of gets into that with like the Ham and Noah thing, how Ham stole the coat instead of maybe sodomy, and then the other and then with Esau and Jacob, Jacob stealing the coat from Esau and whatnot, because there always seems
Do you know how
going on too.
do you know how Esau got the coat?
Nah, he stole it from Jacob.
It actually No, it actually tells you. It actually tells you where in the book of Jasher, how Esau got the coat. So Esau killed Nimrod, right? So Nimrod got the coat from his father Cush, and Cush got it from Ham, right? And Ham stole it from Noah.
Yeah, there
right?
it is.
Right, and the story with Ham, right, doing something, and it wasn't sodomy.
Yeah.
No,
well, I mean, some
that
people
was made up.
Some people say that, so that I was just
right. Well, again, Noah's wife was of the line of Cain, so she wasn't completely sort of pure herself, right? So she might have been complicit in this, but Ham, uncovering the nakedness of his father. Well, that means to sleep with his father's wife. Right? You find that in Leviticus. That same phraseology means to sleep with somebody's wife. Right? So Ham slept with his mother. Right? The result was Canaan, and that's why Canaan was cursed and not Ham. Right? It's also why all the giants, the post-flood giants, were Canaanites, because think about it. All the DNA, the Nephilim DNA in Nama, right? The Nephilim DNA was also in Ham, and Nama and Ham coming together concentrates that DNA into their offspring, Canaan. So there's now more of a chance of that Nephilim DNA, coming up from dormancy and expressing itself. And it did in Canaan's children. And a lot of Canaan's children, they became giants.
Yeah. All right.
As I said, when you figure the story out, when you see the story in its entirety, all these little strange bits start to make sense. Yeah.
Yeah.
If you take it in terms of bloodline. Yes, there are lots of strange bits.
Yeah.
Here's another bit of strangeness. This whole idea of Abraham. Is it Abraham? Yeah, Abraham going to sacrifice Isaac. Right? That doesn't seem to make sense. why would the Most High, tell Abraham to kill his firstborn son as a sacrifice, when the Most High already? I hope this isn't too noisy. My mum's forgotten again, and she's grating something. So why would Abraham be forced to sacrifice his only son? Right. So if you look in the book of Joshua, it tells you that it wasn't the Most High that told him to do that. It was an angel. Right? It was one of the wicked angels that told him to do that. Yeah. And essentially, this angel, right, a Satan called Mastema, held back the ram that was supposed to be the sacrifice, and said, it's got to be Isaac, right? Because first of all, the Most High hates human sacrifices. He said that, right? Yeah, and the Most High doesn't change, right? Second of all, he'd already promised to Abraham that Isaac would be would spawn a great nation. How could he do that if he was going to be sacrificed as a boy? Yeah. So the promise had already been given. So Abraham wasn't an idiot. He was a very, very wise, very clever man. If the Most High, said you got to say, promised him that his son was going to spawn a great nation, and then said no, you got to kill him for. No, it'd be like, well, hang on a minute. What do you mean? Yeah, none of it makes sense until you plug in the fact that it was an angel trying to stop that bloodline from continuing, because Abraham and Sarah were a choke point. Yeah, it came down to those two. They had the chosen one, Isaac. But if Isaac died, well, Abraham and Sarah are now too old to have any more children. But this if you go into the book of Joshua, it also tells you that this Mastema wanted to make sure, so he was the one who was behind the death of Sarah. He wanted to make sure that they couldn't be, this chosen line continuing. Right? So it tried to kill Isaac and then killed Sarah, so that there's no chance. Right? But the Most High got there in right at the end and said, "Hey, don't sacrifice your son." And that's when they found, the ram for sacrifice is being held back by that Satan.
Yeah, that makes more sense. When we were first talking before we started the show, you said you asked me if I knew what the original origins of the Bible or the reason for the Bible was. Can we get into that? What the purpose is?
We've already just touched on that. Really, it's all about bloodlines. Yeah, it's all about the fact that the Most High created Adam. He formed Adam as his offspring, essentially, is his representative on Earth. Adam was supposed to be the immortal governor of Earth. Okay, and he was going to govern on his own, right? Until Adam's first job was to name all the animals, and it says in the book, amongst the animals, a helper wasn't found. Right? So the Most High realized Adam might need a helper, and they couldn't find a suitable helper amongst the animals. So that's when Eve was created. Eve wasn't created as a mate, right? Because they were meant to be immortal. Okay. The reason why that kind of got messed up was the whole incident in the garden had nothing to do with eating apples. It was an angel, and his name was given in the book of Enoch as Gadriel or Gad. Okay, it's where we get the word God from. Yeah, which is the name of a fallen angel. So this angel Gadriel, right? He seduced Eve, showed her about sex, right? And then Eve went and showed Adam, and as soon as they had sex, they lost their ability to be immortal, right? Because the way I see it is that when you have a child, you give some of your life energy to that child, right? So if you're an immortal and you give away some of that life energy, well, now you can't be immortal anymore, right? Because that energy is gone and given to a child. And now Adam lived for 930 years, but he couldn't be immortal anymore. So, and there's a bit more evidence, but yeah, there's lots. I'll go on for hours if I had to, but there's lots more evidence to me that shows me that that's what happened. Adam was supposed to be immortal. It got messed up by the fallen angels. Plan B, as such, was okay. It's no longer going to be Adam. It's going to be Adam's offspring, and so the Most High cleaned the earth of the Nephilim DNA, and the final cleansing was essentially a split. So it was Jacob being now cleansed, Esau spawning the Edomites. Right, he was actually kept to be a punishment for Jacob, because that particular bloodline was going to be doing the enslavement, the final enslavement. So the Most High brought the Edomites against Jacob for the final punishment. And I think if you go in the book of Obadiah, it basically says that the Edomites went too far in their pursuit of punishing the Israelites, and so there will be judgment against them. That's the whole book of Obadiah.
So, some people believe that the Edomites died out a long time ago, that they were all killed off. But do you think there was some pockets of Edomites that still survive, and are they still around today?
The Edomites became the Greeks and then the Romans.
Right. Yeah.
The Edomites are still here, and they're still here, still in force. And if that was true, then why would the book of Obadiah be talking about the demise of Edom in the last days? Yeah. What the particular bloodline I'm talking about?
Yeah. Sorry. Go ahead.
I was going to say the particular bloodline I'm talking about would symbolize themselves with the eagle. Okay. So you can follow them around the world and their various empires, with their eagle symbolism. So you've got the eagle from Egypt. You've got the eagle from Greece, a two-headed eagle in Greece. Yeah, you've got the SPQR eagle of Rome. Yeah, you've got the eagle of Germany. Okay, remember Saxony, right? As a pocket of this bloodline. And then you've got another place now where the eagle is being symbolized as the current empire, America. Okay, in Obadiah, it talks about, it's all about the Edomites, and it says that the Edomites would set their nest among the stars. I think it goes, though thou exalt thyself as the eagle and set thy nest among the stars, then shall I bring you down. Okay, so what country has set their nest among the stars?
I'm going to guess America, but I'm not 100% sure.
Well, okay. What was the supposed first words from supposedly the moon?
From the moon?
Very first words from the moon. Yeah.
I don't know.
Tranquility Base. The eagle has landed.
Gotcha. From the moon.
They didn't choose eagle. They didn't choose the eagle just from a whim. No, they were setting their nest among the stars, putting their standard, the eagle.
That's
right?
why all the
just
Greek
as they
names.
put it in all the countries they've been.
Greek. Apollo is Greek. Artemis is Greek. Greek names.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Right. Those Greek gods are the fallen angels. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
These fallen angels have had the same characters. They've just got given different names because of the Tower of Babel, where all the people went away with the knowledge of these fallen angels. They just gave them different names. Yeah. So yes, the Edomites set their nest among the stars.
So
and that's why.
So who are the who are the serpents? Who are the snake people then? The eagle,
Okay,
the eagle and the serpent battle each other. So if the eagle's Nephilim,
the brothers fight each other. Yeah. Okay, and this bloodline is particularly warlike. So if they haven't got enemies to fight, they fight each other. Okay, so the eagle is one bloodline, right? Of this. Okay, one branch of this bloodline. There are other branches like the Khazarians, who were the serpent people. Okay. And just like the Israelites have 12 tribes, yeah, the Illuminati have 12 bloodlines of the Illuminati. Yeah, so equal and opposite. Yeah, you got the 12 tribes and the 12 bloodlines.
Okay.
12 or 13, because Joseph's tribe was split into two, so you got 13 bloodlines, and you got 13 bloodlines with the Illuminati.
Yeah, Dan was kicked out.
Yeah.
I think Dan relates to the Phoenicians and Troy and all of that stuff too, which is pretty interesting because it seems like more of like a hybrid. Like there's different people within that whole group. It wasn't one racial ethnicity. It was multicultural, multi-races, because they're maritime culture. So they go to these different places and cohabitate with them.
Well, again, the custom was to name a place after the people,
which is what Dan did.
You can find where Dan went, by looking at place names and rivers like the Danube, Denmark, Mark of Dan, Sweden.
Is there a lot of those places in England, Ireland, Scotland? A lot of places named after Dan or named after
yes, there are places usually, I think, with the name Don, because vowels are interchangeable. Paleo-Hebrew, the original language, had no vowels, so vowels were introduced later, and so they're kind of interchangeable. So when you find words like Don, or words with place names with Don in them, that's kind of an indication. I think I might be wrong, but I think that's how it is in England anyway.
You're accurate, I would say. I don't usually get political over here, but Don Trump, is that a trumpet? Is that a seal being broken?
I don't know. I mean, because look, okay, this is where it gets a bit contentious. As far as I'm concerned, the New Testament is a fake book. It was created by the Romans, the Greeks, and the Romans, who were the Edomites, the enemies of the Israelites, and JC was created to make the Israelites sin without knowing it. The first commandment is, "Thou shalt not have any other gods before me." Right. So when the Edomites came at the Israelites as Romans, they said, "Okay, this is your creator. Yeah, this is your Most High. He's come down as a man." Which is what all the Roman gods were man gods. Okay, this is your creator, the Most High, as a man. In order to worship the Most High, you've got to go through this guy. Yeah. So any Christian, or step back, any Israelite who joins this religion of Christianity and worships JC, well, he's breaking the first commandment and worshipping somebody before the Most High.
Mm. Wow. Yeah, that's deep. Yeah, because they wear the cross and the crucifixion cross, which is an idol to me, which is against that's blasphemy, right? So
well, the book actually says that when the Israelites go into captivity, right, the final captivity, they were going to worship gods, strange gods of wood and stone. Right. Well, there are only two religions that the Israelites today have fallen into, right? Christianity, the religion of wood, the wooden cross, and Islam, the religion of the Kaaba stone. Yeah, so the strange religions of wood and stone.
Wow. So okay, so you think that the New Testament is all Esau version. So what do you think the Old Testament is?
The Old Testament come from the Hebrew scriptures, which are right the words and the stories of the Most High and the history of His people. It's a book of law, history, and guidance.
Yeah. I think you said, I heard in another episode, you said that the original name for the Bible was something else. It was the Book of Remembrance.
Yeah, the Book of the Law, the Book of Remembrance. Yeah, that's in Malachi. Yeah.
Okay.
Because it's really all about, right? The whole book was written by the Israelites of antiquity for their descendants in the future when they would forget who they are, forget their connection to the Most High. They'd forget their culture, their history, their names, their origins, everything. They'd forget everything. But in the last days, they will start to remember themselves in the lands of their captivity and then find the Most High. And that's what's happening.
Yeah, that's fascinating, man. It's so interesting. I've been looking at the Bible for a long time and reading different things. The bloodline stuff always is very confusing to me, like trying to understand how all that works. But the way you kind of explained it today to me, now I'm starting to make some different correlations in my head, which is why I'm kind of stuttering on my words, because I'm thinking about how all of it, fits in and works. It's pretty interesting, man. And it connects to some other things that I've heard about and stuff. So I'm going to spend some more time looking into this.
Well, what's interesting is that in Daniel, it says something like, shut up the book till the end. Yeah. How do you shut up the most popular book of all time? Yeah. How do you shut up so it can't be understood? Well, when you put a religion over it, so that the story is kind of skewed away from its actual meaning, and now it's directed at JC. It's all about him now. Well, now the book is unreadable. Yeah, if you try and read the Old Testament with the New Testament Messiah character, in your heart, right? The book doesn't make any sense. Right? You take him out, you take that idol out of your heart and read the book. The book is an amazing story, an amazing science fiction story, right? That makes absolute total sense.
Yeah. To get back to King James a little bit, this is one of those things that always confused me too. Is we read the King James Bible, it's said by many people to be the best translation and whatnot. All the other translations are complete bogus. It's the King James one that's the best one. But then you have like King James who wrote a book about demons and stuff, and he was really fascinated with demons, seemingly maybe because he was being infiltrated by them and wanted to know his enemy well or something. But so why do you think in the King James version that they have the New Testament if he knew presumably that the New Testament was bad? Or some people believe even like Francis Bacon wrote the book, and he had other people write it, not necessarily him. So what's the allure of the King James version?
Oh, sorry. I missed a bit of this. I'm trying to hear it. Sorry. And so I caught a bit about the translation of the Old Testament, whether the King James was a good translation. There isn't such thing as a good translation.
Okay.
No such thing, because the language that it was written in originally, like Paleo-Hebrew, is a completely different language than these languages we're speaking now. Works in a completely different way. Yeah. I've done a little demonstration. I've done it over and over again, and you probably haven't seen it, but shall I do a little demonstration of the difference between the two?
Sure. Yeah. Do it.
Okay. So I'm going to describe a film to you in English, and you have to tell me what the film is. Okay. So, a man on the autistic spectrum recounts his life to strangers. What's the film?
Oh, I don't know.
Yeah, I want to see what comes to you. A man on the autistic spectrum
Rain Man?
recounts his life to strangers. Rain Man, okay. So I'm not going to tell you if you're right or not, but what happened there is in the left-hand side of your brain, right, you heard the words I was saying, and you fetched the meanings of those words, okay? And then you compared that list of meanings to a list of films you'd seen, and you guessed at Rain Man. Okay, right. So I'm not going to tell you. I'm not going to tell if you're right or not. And I hope you've seen these films. But okay, I'm going to tell you the same film in Paleo-Hebrew. Right. So Paleo-Hebrew is a language of little pictograms. Yeah, little pictures of things that mean something to the Hebrew. Okay, so I'm going to use emojis. Right. So I'm going to give you a list of emojis.
All right.
Right. So. Man running, a few trees, a park bench, a box of chocolates, a shrimp, and a boat. What's the film?
Forrest Gump.
Forrest Gump. Right. So in that instance, right, the left-hand side of your brain couldn't get involved because it can't analyze pictures. They're just pictures. Yeah. So you were just listening to those my descriptions and imaging the pictures, and all of a sudden you knew what the film was, right? Because that set of pictures describes the whole film. Yeah. It gives you it encapsulates the whole film. Right? You didn't have to think about it. Literally, it just came from your intuition. You knew what the film was. Yeah. That's the difference between Paleo-Hebrew. It's a language that you looked at it and you knew what it meant. You didn't have to guess at it. Yeah. English is a language you have to guess at. Right. When somebody, if you can do this as an experiment, describe something to somebody that's kind of slightly technical, right? Sit there and describe something to them, and then say at the end, could you repeat back what I told you? They'll flush and go, and you'll realize how little they got from you because they were constantly guessing at what you meant. Yeah, that's English. Paleo-Hebrew, as I said, is very, very specific, and it means what it says. Okay, every word or every letter has 8 different meanings. Okay, every word is the story that those letters tell you. with all those meanings. And just like the Forrest Gump example, you don't just choose one of the words, one of the meanings, yeah, right? You have to take all of them together, right? So if I was translating the word Forrest Gump from the Old Testament, and the translators had that set of pictures, man running, few trees, park bench, box of chocolates, shrimp, and a boat, yeah? If that was a word, right, the translator would go park bench. Take that word, put it in the translation, right? Can you see what I mean?
Yeah.
You might get something from that translation, but the real story, the real meaning of that translation is kind of lost.
Yeah, picture's worth.
It's not a good analogy, but you see what I'm saying. That by the English way of choosing one word to mean that all-embracing word, you lose a lot of the translation. Now, you can get it back by looking at different translations, because essentially, if you look at particular words in different translations, you essentially start recreating the original word by getting all the different meanings, right? So you get all the different meanings and then see what all those meanings together mean to you.
Yeah.
So the point is that the Most High is very clever. The Most High made it so that you couldn't hide the true word of the Most High. Even if you try and translate it away, right, there's still a path back to the original translation or the original words.
Yeah. Fascinating. That was great. We're winding down here now, towards the end. You had mentioned earlier that you were atheist for 40 years. Have you changed your mind about that now, since you got into the Bible or whatnot? Or
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I know the Most High exists. I've literally changed my life because of it. I keep the Sabbath now. I keep all the laws, statutes, and commandments of the Most High to the best of my ability. Yeah. So yes, my life has absolutely changed because okay, one of the other books that was taken out of the Old Testament is called Second Esdras. Okay, Second Esdras is about the most amazing book out of the whole work. Okay, but you have to really try hard to find it, because even though the Second Esdras was taken out of the Old Testament, it's in a place called the Apocrypha, which means hidden. Yeah, even though you can find it, most versions have been tampered with. So chapter 7 has 140 verses, but if you search for it, you'll find versions with 70 verses, and you'll find verses with 105 verses, where what they did was they took the later verses and they mixed them with the earlier verses. So essentially the chapter is gibberish. But if you get the version with the full 140 verses, now that chapter is absolutely amazing. It tells you the whole point of life on this earth and what happens after you die. And essentially the point of life is that we are being tested. We're all individually being tested, okay? And it's a very simple test, of which path are you going to take? You've been given this life. You know what the rules are. They're written right here, right? Everyone has them, right? You know what's right and what's wrong, okay? You've been born, off you go. How are you going to live your life? Right? And woe betide you if you end up, the game over sign comes up and you've got a low score because things aren't going to go well for you.
Yeah. So do you just take out the whole New Testament from or do you go by the Bible at all, or do you go by something different?
No, I go by the Old Testament, which is essentially the Hebrew Scriptures. The only reason I haven't ripped out the New Testament is, there might be another shortage of toilet paper. So I just want to be prepared.
All right, fair enough. Yeah. Well, thank you, Dave, for being here today. I appreciate it, man. Heart emoji, thumbs up emoji, rocket emoji.
I take that as up yours.
Oh no, that's love. That's love.
I don't know American.
That's thank you, and rocket means we took it up, dude. We went to
Okay.
the sky on this.
I'm joking.
One.
I'm joking. Don't worry.
No, it was fun. So thank you. Tell the people where they can find you at, what you got going on, YouTube channels, all that good stuff. Plug away.
Okay. So I've got a website, allegedlydave.com, and you can find my videos mostly on YouTube under D Murphy 25, or Allegedly Dave on BitChute and Odyssey. And what I've got going on, I'm in the Caribbean at the moment, but as soon as I get back to England, I'm going on a truth tour. So I think I've got something like 35 places that I'm going in 2 months. So it's going to be pretty hectic. And I'm going to be talking mostly about how to deal with mortgages, because I believe there's a mortgage there's a mortgage Armageddon coming, and I want to give people a fighting chance to keep their homes.
Oh wow, yeah, fascinating. You're a jack of many trades, sir. That's a good thing. That's not a bad thing.
Definitely not. Definitely a master of none.
Well, awesome, man. Well, thank you. I hope to talk to you again sometime. This was great. Fire Tribe, thank you for listening. And if you're not down with that, wake up.